I'm Sophia Adams, an entrepreneur who funded her own education, working tirelessly for every dime. My parents once chose my brother Ethan's lavish, spiritual retreat expenses over my final college tuition payment, claiming he needed this more. Years later, as I thrived and built my own successful financial advisory firm, they came demanding I prop up his latest failing venture, which then ironically crumbled under unforeseen regulatory scrutiny. Before I tell you how my brother's face turned white as a sheet when his grand venture collapsed, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button to join me on this journey of self made success and unexpected justice. My earliest memories are bathed in the soft glow of parental pride, but that light rarely shone on me. It was always directed, unwavering and brilliant, upon my younger brother, Ethan. He was the sensitive soul, the artistic spirit, the one who needed constant nurturing to truly blossom, while I, Sophia Adams, was the strong one, the capable one, the one who seemed to effortlessly manage whatever life threw my way. Our childhood home in the tranquil suburbs of Evergreen boasted a large, sprawling yard and comfortable rooms, but the emotional landscape was anything but balanced. My mother, Eleanor, doted on Ethan with an almost suffocating intensity, her gaze perpetually soft when it landed on him, her voice filled with a tenderness she rarely reserved for anyone else. My father, Richard, typically followed her lead, offering a quiet, distant approval to me that felt more like a polite acknowledgement of my existence than genuine, heartfelt affection. I learned early that my achievements were met with a casual nod, a perfunctory, "That's nice, dear," if I was lucky, while Ethan's smallest endeavors, from a crooked crayon drawing to a less than stellar report card, were celebrated with effusive praise, breathless announcements to relatives, and sometimes lavish rewards that felt almost comically disproportionate. I remember my 12th birthday, a pivotal moment that cemented my understanding of my place in our family hierarchy. I had spent weeks planning every detail of a small pizza party with a few close friends, a rare treat I had been promised. I'd meticulously curated a playlist from my meager CD collection, drawn up a list of games, and even helped mom bake cupcakes the day before, my heart bubbling with a quiet, hopeful anticipation. The morning of, however, a frantic, hushed excitement vibrated through the house. Ethan, then 9, had apparently expressed a sudden, profound interest in competitive chess and needed a custom, high-end chess set flown in from Europe, along with immediate, intensive coaching sessions. His local elementary school had just announced a gifted program in strategic games, and my parents were convinced this was Ethan's calling. "Sophia, darling, isn't this wonderful?" Mother exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with a fierce pride as she looked at Ethan, who barely concealed a triumphant smirk behind a hand held to his mouth. He was already practicing complex moves on a basic board Dad had quickly set up. "Ethan has found his passion. Your party will have to be moved, darling. His first private lesson is this afternoon, and we absolutely need to be there for moral support, to show him we believe in him." My protests, small and trembling, about my friends arriving soon, were met with a dismissive wave from my father, who was already on the phone confirming Ethan's coach. "You understand, Sophia? Ethan needs this focus right now. You're always so good at understanding." I remember the hollow ache in my chest as I called my friends, one by one, canceling the party. I received a grocery store cake and a gift card that year, the faint echoes of Ethan's triumphant checkmate, from his first lesson in the den serving as the bitter soundtrack to my quiet, solitary disappointment. It wasn't just about the party. It was about the palpable shift in priorities, the unwritten rule that Ethan's whims, however fleeting, trumped my heartfelt desires and meticulous planning. It was about realizing I was always an afterthought, easily sacrificed on the altar of his perceived genius. This pattern persisted relentlessly throughout our formative years. My straight A's, the perfect report cards I proudly brought home, my science fair victories with intricate models of sustainable energy systems, the leadership roles I diligently secured in school clubs, my acceptance into the National Honor Society. They were all just what we expected from me. They were footnotes in our family narrative, quickly overshadowed by Ethan's latest creative pursuit, his fleeting passions for photography, pottery, or amateur filmmaking. Each new hobby was accompanied by substantial financial investment from our parents' expensive cameras, custom kilns, high-end editing software. When I won a regional debate championship in my junior year of high school, a significant academic achievement that had taken weeks of intense preparation and late-night research, I eagerly called home, expecting some semblance of genuine congratulations. Instead, my mother interrupted my excited monologue mid sentence. That's lovely, dear, she said, her voice preoccupied, tinged with a faint irritation at my interruption. But Ethan's new short film premiered tonight at the community center. He needs us there, Sophia. It's a very important night for his artistic future. Did you see the intricate costume he designed for his lead actor? It's simply brilliant, darling. My voice, full of unshared triumph, withered on the phone. My father, when he finally came on the line, offered a tired, distant, "Good job, Sophia. You're so talented with words, always have been." The subtext was always clear. My talents were utilitarian, practical, merely expected, whereas Ethan's were artistic, grand, deserving of all attention, all resources, and all the emotional energy my parents possessed. That night, sitting alone in my bedroom, I stared at the small, engraved trophy I had won, the metallic shine feeling utterly meaningless. The realization settled deep within me. If I wanted to be seen, truly seen, it wouldn't be by them. It would have to be by myself, and by the world I built beyond their narrow perceptions. By the time college applications rolled around, I knew my path would be solitary. I applied for every scholarship imaginable, poring over essays and prepping for interviews with a tenacity born of necessity. While Ethan breezed into a prestigious private arts college with a full, unquestioned tuition paid by our parents, along with a generous monthly allowance for living expenses and creative supplies, I secured a partial scholarship to a state university, a testament to my hard work and late nights in the library. The remaining tuition and all my living expenses, books, rent for my small off campus apartment, food, transportation, would be entirely my responsibility. My parents offered no additional financial assistance, stating with a dismissive wave of my mother's hand, "Sophia, you're so resourceful. You always manage. Ethan needs our help more. He has to focus on his creativity without the burden of loans or a job. He has a delicate artistic spirit, you see." I accepted their decision without outwardly flinching, a practiced smile pasted on my face, but internally, a quiet, fierce resolve solidified. I would not only survive but thrive, building something entirely my own, something that no one could take away or diminish, something that truly belonged to me. The emotional neglect had become a powerful, if painful, fuel, hardening my resolve and sharpening my focus on a future where my worth was determined by my own efforts, not by the fickle affections of a family perpetually blinded by favoritism. My silent declaration became the cornerstone of my professional ambition, propelling me forward with an unshakable determination to create a legacy of self made success and undeniable capability. My departure for the state university marked the true beginning of my independence, a stark contrast to Ethan's cushioned entry into his arts college. While his campus life, as gleaned from occasional, boastful social media posts, was a whirlwind of exclusive workshops, experimental performances, and carefree exploration funded entirely by our parents, mine was a carefully orchestrated ballet of rigorous classes, demanding part time jobs and relentless study sessions. My partial scholarship covered a significant portion of my tuition, but everything else, books, rent for my small, sparsely furnished off campus apartment, meager groceries, bus fare, came from my own pockets. I worked tirelessly as a barista in a bustling campus coffee shop, often starting before dawn, and as a quiet, meticulous campus librarian's assistant in the evenings. On weekends, I tutored fellow students in advanced mathematics and economics, subjects that had always come naturally to me, a stark contrast to the nebulous, subjective realm of artistic genius that so captivated my parents when it came to Ethan. I often pulled all nighters fueled by cheap instant coffee and an unyielding determination, knowing that every hour spent working, every dollar earned, was a small but tangible victory, a manifestation of my burgeoning self reliance. I majored in finance with a minor in data analytics, drawn to the clear, logical world of numbers where effort directly correlated with results, where outcomes were quantifiable, and success was earned, not bestowed. During my sophomore year, a defining moment occurred during Thanksgiving break. I hadn't been home for months, meticulously saving every penny to cover my expenses and avoid asking for any assistance. When I finally arrived, weary but clinging to a faint hope for some genuine connection, I found the house buzzing with an almost frantic excitement over Ethan's latest grand plan. A lavish, months long spiritual retreat in Bali, intended, he declared with dramatic flair, to inspire his next profound photographic series. My mother, Alina, fluttered around him like a hummingbird around a rare bloom, ensuring his complex travel arrangements were perfect, his chosen spiritual guide vetted to her satisfaction, and his extensive list of supplies from specialized, high-end cameras and lenses to artisanal meditation cushions crafted from exotic silks was acquired at great expense. That evening, as I helped clear the dinner table, an all too familiar sense of invisibility washed over me. The conversation revolved entirely around Bali, Ethan's evolving artistic vision, his profound need for this experience to unlock his next creative phase, and the incredible sacrifices my parents were making for his journey. My own updates about my demanding academic load or my new part time research assistant position were met with polite but swift redirection back to Ethan. Later that evening, after everyone else had settled down, I overheard my parents in the study, their voices hushed, tinged with a note of concern that was never present when discussing my finances. Richard, my mother sighed, her voice barely above a whisper, Ethan's expenses for this retreat are simply astronomical. We've already maxed out his credit cards, and the advance for the villa is due. We're going to have to dip into Sophia's college fund again. She's so resourceful, she'll manage, she always does. My father murmured a weak agreement, his voice laced with resignation. She's almost done with her degree anyway. And she has that scholarship, doesn't she? My blood ran cold, a sudden, icy shock seeping into my veins. The college fund was a small, jointly named account that had been established when we were children, meant to be equally divided upon our enrollment in university. It was meager, but it was mine. I pushed open the study door, my heart pounding, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and indignation. My college fund? I asked, the words feeling foreign and sharp on my tongue. My mother's face hardened immediately, her expression shifting from concern for Ethan to barely concealed annoyance, as if I had interrupted a sacred ritual. Sophia, dear, eavesdropping is quite rude. It's for Ethan's retreat. He needs this experience more than you need those last few credits, which you'll undoubtedly find a way to pay for. You always do. My father, caught off guard and clearly uncomfortable, stumbled over his words. It's just a temporary reallocation, Sophia. Ethan's art is so important. He needs to find his muse to experience the world without financial distraction. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the weight of their words crushing me. My muse, I finally managed, a bitter, strangled laugh escaping my lips. My muse is paying my own way, working 3 jobs and getting no help from either of you. My muse is the constant pressure to earn every single thing I have, while Ethan gets handouts for imaginary pursuits. The argument escalated, fueled by years of unspoken resentment and suppressed frustration. My mother, her face flushing, accused me of being ungrateful, of lacking empathy for my brother's delicate artistic soul, of being too hard-headed to understand the true value of creativity. My father retreated, murmuring increasingly desperate platitudes about family unity and the importance of supporting one another, conveniently ignoring the one-sided nature of their support. That night, after a tearful, futile confrontation that left me feeling more isolated than ever, I quietly packed my bag. I didn't say goodbye, just left a simple, succinct note on the kitchen counter. I've paid for my own return ticket. You won't have to worry about my college expenses anymore. The silence of the empty house as I closed the door behind me felt liberating, a final, definitive severing of an emotional umbilical cord that had long since withered. It was then, standing on the cold porch under the silent, indifferent stars, that I made a solemn vow. I would never again allow my financial future or my emotional well being to be dictated by the whims or favoritism of my family. I would build my own world, financially and emotionally independent, populated by people who saw and valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide or how I could serve Ethan's endless, self indulgent needs. This silent declaration became the unshakable cornerstone of my professional ambition, propelling me forward with an unyielding resolve to create a legacy of self made success and undeniable capability. A life lived entirely on my own terms. The years following my complete financial independence were a blur of relentless work and focused ambition, each day a deliberate step away from the shadows of my past. I channeled every ounce of the lingering frustration and deep seated hurt from my family's ingrained favoritism into building a solid foundation for my future. While Ethan, seemingly perpetually back from one exotic spiritual retreat or another, drifted aimlessly from one half hearted artistic endeavor to the next, each new fleeting interest generously funded by our parents, I was completely immersed in the demanding, yet deeply satisfying, world of financial planning and shrewd investment strategies. My small, cluttered apartment near campus, often filled with the scent of stale coffee and ink, became my war room. It was illuminated late into the night by the persistent glow of my laptop as I devoured dense textbooks, analyzed complex market trends, and meticulously crafted intricate business proposals for hypothetical clients, visualizing my future firm. My early days as a financial advisor were humble, indeed. I started by offering pro bono advice to local small businesses and individuals in my university community, eager to gain practical experience and build a reputation from the ground up. My first office was a shared cubicle in a bustling co working space downtown, its walls adorned with inspirational quotes and its air thick with the hum of ambitious startups. My initial clients were mostly referrals from satisfied acquaintances and professors who had seen my dedication, or from individuals who simply couldn't afford larger, more established firms. I learned to stretch every single dollar, investing what little I could back into my nascent business, which I proudly named Ascend Financial. The name was a deliberate choice, a daily reminder of my upward trajectory, a symbol of defying expectations and rising above past limitations. Each new client, each small success, felt like a powerful validation of my choices. I distinctly remember a conversation with my father, Richard, during one of our infrequent, obligatory holiday calls. I was excitedly telling him about Ascend Financial landing, its first truly significant client, a well established local nonprofit looking to optimize their endowment. It was a major milestone for my fledgling firm, a testament to months of diligent networking and persuasive presentations. His response was a dismissive, distracted hum on the other end of the line. "That's nice, Sophia," he said, his voice trailing off, already sounding preoccupied. "But Ethan just bought a new drone. Apparently, it's a very sophisticated model, essential for his aerial photography series of abandoned industrial sites. Your mother and I think it will really take his art to the next level, you see. He's envisioning a whole exhibition." The contrast was stark, almost comically so. My hard won professional triumph, a tangible step towards financial independence, was reduced to a triviality compared to Ethan's latest, parent funded toy, acquired for a fleeting, self indulgent artistic whim. I bit back a sarcastic remark. A lifetime of such painfully uneven exchanges, having taught me the utter futility of arguing with their deeply ingrained favoritism. Instead, I simply said, my voice carefully modulated to convey polite detachment, "That's wonderful, Dad. Well, I have to go. I have a client call coming up in 5 minutes." And quietly hung up. The sting lingered, a familiar ghost, but it no longer incapacitated me. It simply reinforced my resolve to prove my worth through tangible, self made success, rather than seeking their elusive, perpetually withheld approval. Ethan's ventures, in contrast to my painstaking progress, were a revolving door of expensive failures, each cushioned by our parents' unwavering, almost boundless financial support. There was the organic artisanal bread business, launched with a substantial capital injection, that lasted barely 3 months before Ethan lost interest in the tedious reality of waking up before dawn. Then came the bespoke leather goods line, which dissolved ignominiously after he spent the entire production budget on a flamboyant, self proclaimed design consultant who turned out to be little more than a charlatan. Each failure, each misstep, was met not with reprimand or consequence, but with parental commiseration and a fresh injection of capital, a new promise of backing for the next big idea. "He's just finding his passion, Sophia," my mother would patiently explain during our rare, often strained phone calls, her voice full of a tender sympathy she never once extended to my own struggles or sacrifices. "It's part of the creative process, darling. One must experiment." Meanwhile, I was slowly, painstakingly, but steadily building Ascend Financial, brick by ethical brick, focusing on robust investment strategies and deeply personalized financial planning. My reputation grew not just for my keen financial expertise, but for my unwavering integrity, my honest advice, and my genuine commitment to my clients' well being. I believed fiercely in transparency, in putting my clients' interests first, a philosophy born directly from my own experiences of being taken for granted and overlooked. My clients, sensing this sincerity, trusted me implicitly. My efforts began, finally, to bear significant fruit. Ascend Financial attracted a loyal and growing client base, many drawn specifically to my firm's commitment to sustainable and ethical investments, principles that resonated deeply with my own values and my desire to build something truly meaningful. I expanded my office, moving into a brighter, more spacious suite with a view of the city skyline. I hired a small but incredibly dedicated team, each member sharing my vision and work ethic. Soon, I began to gain recognition within the wider financial industry. There were features in local and regional business journals, invitations to speak at prestigious financial conferences, and a growing list of accolades from industry peers. Each small victory, each new piece of recognition, felt like a powerful vindication, a quiet but profound triumph over the years of dismissal and neglect. My chosen family, my incredible team at Ascend Financial, my fiercely loyal college roommate, Lena Petrova, who had become my marketing director and closest confidant, and my wonderful partner, David celebrated these milestones with genuine, heartfelt enthusiasm, a stark and welcome contrast to the polite disinterest and veiled judgment of my biological family. The emotional chasm between us widened with each passing year, not due to anger on my part, but due to a profound realization that their priorities, their values, and their very definition of success simply did not align with mine. I was building a life of purpose and true connection, while they remained ensnared in a frustrating cycle of enablement and unfulfilled expectations, seemingly oblivious to the true value of what I was creating, or perhaps simply uninterested. The phone call came on a crisp autumn morning, 2 years after I had finally purchased my first home, a modest but charming townhouse with a small garden in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. It represented years of diligent savings and careful investment, a tangible symbol of my independence. It was my father, Richard, his voice strained and quiet, unusually subdued, unlike his usual detached, even-keeled tone. Sophia, he said, his voice cracking slightly, your mother, she's not well, it's pancreatic cancer, it's aggressive. My stomach dropped, a sudden, cold dread washing over me. Despite our emotional distance, despite the years of subtle slights and overt favoritism, she was still my mother. The news felt like a physical blow. I immediately dropped everything, rearranged my packed client appointments for the week, and booked the next available flight home, a desperate hope for reconciliation, for some shred of true family connection, flickering within me. I arrived to a house thick with a somber quiet, the air heavy with unspoken grief, and the antiseptic scent of illness that clung to the furniture. Ethan was there, of course, hovering around my mother's bedside, looking pale and dramatically mournful, his artistic temperament seemingly lending itself well to this new, tragic role. He seemed to relish the attention, the role of the devoted son, though I noticed the nurses, with their practiced smiles and weary eyes, always directed their most direct and necessary questions about medication schedules or dietary needs to me, sensing my pragmatic approach. I tried to help, to offer practical assistance, to sit with my mother and simply be present, to hold her hand and offer what comfort I could. But there was an invisible wall, constructed over decades of silent favoritism and emotional distance, that remained firmly in place between us. My mother, weakened and frail, would occasionally reach for Ethan's hand, her eyes softening as she murmured about his beautiful spirit and his innate goodness, while my presence seemed to elicit only a tired nod, a fleeting glance. One evening, as dusk settled outside and cast long shadows across the hallway, I overheard a hushed conversation from the partially open door of my mother's bedroom. Ethan, his voice low and solemn, was speaking to our mother, his words carrying an almost theatrical weight. Mom, you know I'll always be here for you, he said, the words dripping with a calculated, almost possessive sincerity. Sophia, she's always been so strong, so independent. She doesn't need us in the same way. She's too busy with her business, too capable. My mother, her voice barely a whisper, weak but clear, replied, yes, darling, you're right. My sweet boy, you're the one who needs my full support. All that I can give. I stood there, rooted to the spot, invisible, listening to the words that confirmed a lifetime of feeling unseen, of being relegated to the periphery. It was a cruel echo of her past pronouncements, now whispered from her deathbed, solidifying my position as the other daughter, the one who was too capable, too strong, too independent to be truly loved in the profound, consuming way Ethan was. The pain was sharp, a fresh wound carved into old scars, but it also carried a grim certainty. I stayed for a week, doing what I could, making quiet arrangements for meals, coordinating with the nurses, offering to pay for additional home care or specialized medical equipment. My father politely but firmly refused each offer, stating, Ethan has it covered, Sophia. He's been so wonderful taking care of everything. He's practically living here. The implication was clear. Ethan, the one who had constantly leaned on my parents, who had lived off their largesse and squandered their money, was now deemed the sole worthy companion for our mother's final moments, while my practical support and emotional availability were subtly but consistently rejected. I returned to my business, a hollow ache in my chest, promising to return the moment she needed me. I called daily, sent thoughtful flowers and comforting care packages filled with her favorite teas and soft blankets, but the news from home became increasingly bleak. My mother's condition deteriorated rapidly, her voice growing fainter, her energy dimming with each passing day. 2 months later, my father called again, his voice cracking with a raw grief that was finally undeniable. She's not really talking anymore, Sophia. The doctors say it's a matter of days, hours maybe. My heart constricted. I immediately offered to fly back. But my father hesitated, then, with a heavy sigh that sounded like surrender, said, "Actually, Ethan thinks it would be better if you maybe waited. He's been here, he's handling everything. He says it's too chaotic right now for more visitors." The subtle rejection felt like a physical blow, a final, definitive exclusion. The brother who had consistently leaned on my parents, who had lived off their largesse, was now deemed the sole worthy presence at our mother's deathbed. I never got that next weekend. My mother passed away 3 days later, in her sleep, with Ethan and my father at her side. The news came not from my father or Ethan, but from an impersonal, formal email from our family's estate attorney. It is with deep regret that we inform you of the passing of Alina Adams. The funeral arrangements were already set, the obituary published in the local paper, crafted by Ethan himself, with my name listed almost as an afterthought in the final sentence, overshadowed by paragraphs detailing Ethan's artistic accomplishments and his unwavering devotion. At the solemn service, several distant relatives and family friends expressed surprise to see me, murmuring, "Oh, you must be Alina's other daughter. She always spoke so much about Ethan, his art, his sensitive nature." It was a fresh sting of invisibility. After the service, I overheard snippets of conversation about a will reading that had taken place yesterday. When I confronted my father, his face flushed with discomfort, his eyes darting away. "Just a formality, Sophia," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "Nothing you needed to be present for. Everything was straightforward." The next morning, as I prepared to leave the house that no longer felt like a home, he handed me a sealed envelope, a thick legal document. "From the attorney," he said, his voice flat. "Your copy." On the plane, the hum of the engines a dull roar in my ears, I tore open the envelope. My mother's will, meticulously worded by a legal professional, left everything: the house, the substantial investment accounts she had diligently managed, the antique jewelry she had inherited from her own mother, solely to Ethan. A handwritten note, scribbled at the bottom in her elegant, familiar script, confirmed the devastating truth. "Sophia has always been the strong one, the one who needs nothing. Ethan, my delicate son, needs my full support and all that I can give. He deserves all of this for his future, for his art." It was a deliberate, final statement of her unwavering favoritism, a testament to her perception of my worth through my self sufficiency, and Ethan's through his endless, insatiable need. The pain was sharp, an agonizing wrenching in my gut, but paradoxically, also cleansing. It confirmed what I had known all along, providing a strange kind of liberation from any lingering, childish hope for their unconditional love. It was a clear, undeniable line drawn in the sand, freeing me to walk away without looking back, knowing that their choices were final, and so were mine. For 18 months after my mother's death and the shocking contents of her will, I plunged myself deeper into my work, using the lingering sting of rejection as a powerful, if painful, propellant. Ascend Financial didn't just survive. It flourished, gaining a reputation as a highly ethical and innovative firm specializing in financial restructuring and strategic wealth management. My client base expanded exponentially, and my team grew from a handful of dedicated individuals to a thriving, professional cadre of advisors and analysts. A testament to the principles of hard work, unwavering integrity, and client first dedication I championed. During this time, Ethan, now living in the sprawling, increasingly unkempt family home with my father, seemed to be living a life of leisure, rapidly depleting the inheritance he had received. Our communication was non existent. My phone remained silent where calls from them were concerned, and I made no effort to reach out. I heard through the grapevine of his continued lavish spending, extravagant art supplies he never seemed to use, impulsive trips, and a string of failed, self indulgent ventures. But I paid them no mind, having deliberately built my life far removed from their toxic dynamics. My relationship with David, my partner, deepened into a profound, unconditional love, and we eventually moved into a beautiful, sunlit home together, a sanctuary of mutual respect, unwavering support, and peaceful solitude that felt miles away from my turbulent past. Then, inevitably, the news of Ascend Financial's rising profile, particularly a detailed feature in a prominent national business magazine highlighting my unique approach to distressed asset management and ethical investing, must have reached their ears. The article, which praised my firm's growth and my personal journey, was accompanied by a large photograph of me, confident and poised, standing in my sleek, modern office. It was a quiet declaration of my success, undeniable and self made. The phone rang. It was my father, Richard, his voice saccharine, cloyingly warm in a way it hadn't been in years, a stark contrast to the strained, distant tones I had grown accustomed to. Sophia, darling, he began, a tone so unfamiliar it sent a shiver of unease down my spine. Your company, Ascend Financial, it's truly remarkable what you've built. Your mother would be so proud. A pregnant pause. Ethan and I were just saying, it's high time we reconnected. Perhaps we could come visit you, see your impressive offices, your beautiful new home. Ethan's been saying he misses his little sister, you know. He laughed, a short, nervous sound. The phrase little sister, especially from Ethan, felt like a punch to the gut given our years of complete estrangement. Despite David's immediate skepticism, a tiny, irrational part of me, buried deep beneath layers of old wounds, flickered with a faint, hopeful possibility that this might be a chance for a new beginning, a genuine bridge toward a healthier connection. Against my better judgment, I agreed to their visit the following weekend. They arrived at our home, pulling up in my father's aging sedan, looking conspicuously out of place amidst our carefully curated modern decor and the serene lake view. Ethan, dressed in an expensive but ill-fitting suit, the fabric clearly too tight across his shoulders, emerged first, his movements stiff. He embraced me with a performative hug, a theatrical air kiss that barely brushed my cheek. "Sophia, darling sister," he exclaimed, his voice a little too loud, his eyes already sweeping over our living room with wide, appraising glances. "This place is simply gorgeous. You've truly outdone yourself. So much space?" My father nodded, his gaze sweeping over our eclectic art collection, his expression a mix of awe and a barely concealed calculation. "Yes, Sophia. You've certainly done well for yourself, kiddo." As I gave them a quick, somewhat uncomfortable tour, offering them chilled sparkling water and gourmet cheese, Ethan pointed to a large, abstract piece of art hanging in our dining room. "This must have cost a fortune," he remarked, not as a question but a statement, his eyes narrowed, an almost predatory glint within them. It was glaringly clear that the true reason for their visit was not to reconnect, but to assess my financial standing, to gauge the depth of my newfound wealth. I deliberately kept my answers vague regarding Ascend Financial's precise valuation, simply stating, "Yes, we've been very successful. It's been a lot of hard work." The real agenda, however, unfolded with nauseating predictability during Saturday brunch. As David expertly flipped omelets in our sunlit kitchen, Ethan, after a lengthy, rambling monologue about his latest visionary venture, a high-end luxury wellness retreat for creatives, which he envisioned opening in Bali, echoing his earlier indulgences, finally got to the point. "So, Sophia," he began, leaning forward, his voice dripping with an uncharacteristic earnestness that immediately set off my internal alarms, "Father and I have been talking about your company, Ascend Financial." I felt David's hand subtly squeeze my knee under the table, a silent signal of shared apprehension. My father cleared his throat, adjusting his tie, his gaze fixed on a distant point beyond the window. "It's quite remarkable what you've built, Sophia, and we were thinking, it's really a family accomplishment in many ways. It goes back generations, truly." I blinked, genuinely stunned, the omelet on my plate suddenly tasting like ash. "A family accomplishment?" I repeated, the words laced with a bitter sarcasm that went right over their heads. My father, oblivious to my tone, continued, his voice taking on a tone of self-congratulatory righteousness. "Yes, dear, your mother and I put you through that excellent university, you know. And all those computers we bought you growing up, all the support we gave you, that fundamental foundation is what truly allowed you to create Ascend Financial. Without us, where would you be?" Ethan chimed in with an almost theatrical sigh, placing a hand over his heart. "And I always encouraged your logical interests, didn't I, Soph? Remember how I used to let you help me organize my art supplies? That's where you truly got your knack for order, for systems." The audacity was breathtaking, a physical blow that left me momentarily speechless. I stared wide-eyed as they laid out their preposterous claim, their faces utterly devoid of irony. What exactly are you saying? I finally managed, my voice dangerously calm, barely above a whisper. My father leaned even closer across the table, his eyes gleaming with a desperate hope, a raw, unvarnished greed. We're saying that your success has deep roots in this family, Sophia, and families should share in each other's good fortune. Ethan, emboldened by my silence, clarified with a sickening, self-satisfied smile, "You mean financially, of course. I mean, you're worth millions now, Soph. And meanwhile, the market for visionary, experimental art hasn't exactly soared for my projects. And my wellness retreat needs significant capital to truly blossom. It's a very high concept, exclusive venture, you see." He waved a dismissive hand when I pointed out that his retreat was still just a concept on paper, no actual property, no clients. The point is, we're family, and you owe your family a share of your success. It's only fair. My father added, his voice regaining some of its old authority. Your mother, God rest her soul, left everything to Ethan because we thought you didn't need it. But now that you've done so incredibly well, it just seems right to balance things out, doesn't it? The word fair ignited a slow burn of fury within me, a familiar fire that had been smoldering for decades. Mom left everything to Ethan because she favored him, I retorted, my voice rising slightly, losing its carefully constructed calm. She believed he needed it because she fostered his dependence, while she cultivated my self sufficiency as an excuse for neglect. And now that my company is successful, after years of neglect and financial struggle on my part, you think I owe you both a share of it? A company you've shown zero interest in, a business you dismissed and ridiculed, until you read about it in a magazine? Ethan's expression morphed from earnestness to raw ugliness. We were thinking maybe 25%, he stated, his voice devoid of any pretense of affection or familial warmth. That seems fair for family, a family share. My blunt refusal to their audacious demand, not 25%, not 5%, not a single share, plunged our already strained family dynamic into open warfare. The carefully constructed facade of reconciliation shattered, revealing the raw desperation and entitlement that had truly driven their visit. My father, his face contorted in disbelief and a fleeting hint of genuine pain, stuttered, "Sophia, there's no need to be difficult. We're just talking about what's fair. Your mother would want us to share. She always believed in family unity." Ethan, however, abandoned all pretense of civility, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and panic. His carefully curated image of the sensitive artist dissolved, revealing the bitter, grasping core beneath. "We didn't want to do this, Sophia," he snarled, his voice rising, "but you leave us no choice. That financial software you use, your big breakthrough in distressed asset management, it's clearly based on Dad's old amateur coding experiments. We have his dusty notebooks, filled with brilliant ideas to prove it. You developed the initial concept while living in our family home during college breaks. Technically, that makes it intellectual property developed using family resources." My father, though clearly uncomfortable and avoiding my gaze, nodded weakly, his shoulders slumping in reluctant agreement. "We've consulted an attorney, a very reputable one. We're prepared to take legal action to secure what's rightfully the family share. It's all in the legal notice they drafted." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the polished hardwood floor, the sound echoing in the sudden, tense silence. "Get out of my house," I commanded, my voice devoid of emotion, a cold clarity settling over me. My composure, in contrast to their escalating fury, seemed to infuriate Ethan further. He lunged slightly, then stopped as David stepped subtly between us. Ethan's parting shot as David firmly, but politely ushered them out the door was a venomous whisper, dripping with a manufactured righteousness. "Family helps family, Sophia. Always, Mom would be so disappointed in you right now. So disappointed." 3 days later, the formal legal notice arrived, delivered by a grim-faced courier to my office. It was a thick, official-looking document, a cease and desist letter, claiming a stake in Ascend Financial's core intellectual property, demanding a significant percentage of all future profits, based on the fabricated claim of my father's pioneering coding work and my supposed use of family resources for development. My lawyer, Cassandra Cassie Vance, a formidable intellectual property attorney known for her no-nonsense approach and razor-sharp intellect, reviewed the document with a dismissive flick of her wrist. She simply raised an eyebrow, a slight, almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips. A nuisance suit, Sophia, she declared, her voice calm but firm, laced with professional disdain. They're desperate. This has nothing to do with intellectual property, and everything to do with your brother's empty pockets and your parents' desire to continue enabling him. The legal battle that ensued was not just about intellectual property. It was a grueling, public assault on my reputation, my character, and my firm's integrity. Ethan and my parents launched a subtle but insidious campaign, leveraging their fading social connections within our old hometown and beyond. They posted vague but suggestive comments on social media, Facebook updates filled with passive aggressive laments about unethical business practices and betrayal of family trust, carefully crafted to avoid direct libel but convey maximum damage. They spread calculated rumors to mutual acquaintances, implying that my success was built on unacknowledged family contributions, twisting the narrative to paint me as cold, greedy, and ungrateful. I received thinly veiled messages from distant relatives and former family friends, expressing concern and urging me to make peace for the sake of my aging parents. One particularly galling incident occurred at a major charity gala I attended, a high profile event for my firm designed to showcase our philanthropic endeavors. Ethan and my mother made a dramatic, uninvited entrance. They walked directly past me without acknowledgement, then strategically positioned themselves within earshot of key investors and potential clients, engaging in overly loud, performative conversations with others, lamenting how difficult some family members can be when success changes them, how money makes people forget their roots. This was the public, insidious abuse I had to endure, a constant, low level hum of judgment, implied wrongdoing, and subtle character assassination. My initial instinct was to retreat, to shield myself from the onslaught, to pull back from public life and focus solely on my business. But Cassie urged me to stand firm. They want you to fold, Sophia, she explained during one of our strategy meetings, her voice cutting through my weariness. They want you to settle to make the noise go away to avoid the public spectacle. That's their strategy. Leverage your need for peace against their desperation. She meticulously gathered evidence, not just to refute their baseless legal claims, but to expose the true extent of Ethan's financial irresponsibility and my parents' long-standing pattern of enabling him. Cassie's team, with their tireless dedication, uncovered damning proof. Ethan had not only squandered his substantial inheritance in less than 2 years on a string of speculative, poorly researched ventures, but had also secretly taken out a second mortgage on the family home, unbeknownst to my father, to fund his most recent, disastrous, avant garde art installation that had gone wildly over budget. They're not just desperate, Sophia, Cassie revealed, her voice tinged with a grim understanding as she laid out the financial reports. They're drowning deeply. They saw your success as their last life raft, their only way out of a mounting financial disaster. The most devastating discovery, however, was a series of meticulously preserved emails between my mother, Alina, and Ethan, dating back to before her cancer diagnosis. In them, my mother wrote, "When Sophia's company takes off, Ethan, we'll need to ensure you get your share. You deserve it more, given your artistic temperament and greater needs, your delicate soul." And Ethan's chillingly pragmatic replies, "Of course, Mom. We'll just say Sophia's ideas came from Dad's old inventions. We'll frame it as a family legacy." It was a cold, irrefutable confirmation that their scheme had been premeditated, a carefully constructed plan to leverage my future success, regardless of my mother's declining health. This revelation, more than any other piece of evidence, solidified my resolve. This wasn't about love or fairness, it was about calculated exploitation, a lifelong pattern of using me for their own convenience and gain. I would not, under any circumstances, let them win. I would fight for my firm, for my reputation, and for my own hard won peace. The deposition process was excruciating, a stark, theatrical display of calculated falsehoods and carefully rehearsed indignation. My father, Richard, under oath, spun elaborate tales of his alleged, pioneering coding experiments from decades ago, implying they formed the very genesis of Ascend Financial's sophisticated algorithms. He spoke of late nights in the garage, tinkering with lines of code, though I couldn't recall a single instance of him engaging in such a hobby. Ethan, equally theatrical, recounted flowery anecdotes of brainstorming sessions during my rare college breaks at home, painting a vivid picture of collaborative innovation that simply never existed. always careful to emphasize his creative insights that supposedly sparked Sophia's practical applications. Their attorney, a slick, self assured man named Desmond Porter, orchestrated this performance with a practiced ease, his voice a smooth balm as he attempted to drown the truth in a deluge of manufactured narratives and emotional appeals to family unity and shared dreams. But Cassie Vance, my attorney, was utterly relentless. She was a force of nature in the courtroom, armed with a laser sharp intellect and an encyclopedic knowledge of intellectual property law. She meticulously dismantled their claims, brick by brick, with irrefutable, undeniable evidence. She presented emails where Ethan had openly mocked my boring finance talk and contemptuously dismissed my early attempts at coding as pointless technical jargon. She produced my meticulously dated and notarized design documents, tracing the complete evolution of my algorithms from their inception, all independently developed and rigorously protected. She highlighted the infrequency of our communication over the years, the complete absence of any shared intellectual pursuits, and the vast, unbridgeable disparity in our academic and professional backgrounds. Ethan, cornered by Cassie's precise questioning, stumbled over basic technical terms, revealing his utter lack of understanding of the very technology he claimed to have inspired. My father, when pressed on the specifics of his supposed pioneering work, could only offer vague generalities, his memory conveniently hazy on any details that would have substantiated his wildly improbable claim. Their theatrical performance crumbled under the weight of truth. 6 months into the grueling legal proceedings, with discovery completed and our position undeniably strong, Cassie suggested a settlement conference. Not because we're weak, Sophia, she clarified, her voice calm and reassuring, but because it's fiscally responsible. Discovery is done. We have what we need to win. Let's see if they've finally come to their senses and are ready to face reality, or if they prefer to waste more of their dwindling resources. At the conference, held in a sterile, impersonal meeting room, the air thick with tension, I sat across from Porter, my father, and Ethan. Porter, still radiating a misplaced confidence, opened with a demand for a 15% equity stake in Ascend Financial and a substantial cash settlement, a figure so exorbitant it made my stomach churn. Cassie responded with a single, crisp sheet of paper, pushing it across the polished table. Our counter-offer, she stated, her voice calm and unwavering, her gaze piercing, is nothing, not a single dollar, not a single share. The room fell into an immediate, deafening silence. Porter's confident smirk faltered, replaced by a look of bewildered shock. Furthermore, Cassie continued, her voice gaining a low, chilling resonance, her gaze sweeping from Porter to my stunned father and Ethan, her words cutting through the silence like a scalpel, we are prepared to drop our countersuit for legal fees and damages if your clients dismiss their frivolous claim with prejudice, and sign an agreement never to make any future claims against Sophia Adams or Ascend Financial. We will also require a public retraction of the defamatory statements made against my client's professional reputation. Porter sputtered, his composure visibly cracking. That's absurd. My clients have legitimate claims of intellectual property. This is outrageous. Cassie simply leaned forward, her voice dropping to a low, devastating tone that commanded attention. What you have, she corrected him, her eyes gleaming with cold certainty, is a family trying to extort a successful entrepreneur because they squandered their own resources. We have irrefutable, documented evidence that your clients, specifically Aliner and Ethan Adams, were planning this lawsuit, this family claim, before Aliner's death. Their internal communications outline a meticulous scheme to leverage Sophia's future success to cover Ethan's chronic financial irresponsibility. We also have irrefutable evidence of Ethan's prior financial misdeeds and the misappropriation of funds from Alina Adams' estate, making this entire claim not just frivolous, but arguably a confession to inheritance fraud. We are prepared to bring all of this to light in open court. My father's face, already pale from the strain of the long process, turned absolutely ashen, drained of all color. Ethan's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with a sudden, dawning terror. Porter, clearly blindsided and unnerved by Cassie's unexpected depth of evidence, quickly asked for a moment to confer with his clients. They huddled in frantic whispers in a corner of the room, Ethan gesticulating wildly, his voice hushed and panicked, while my father stared blankly at the floor, his shoulders slumping in defeat. When they returned, Porter, his earlier bravado completely deflated, announced, his voice flat and resigned, my clients are prepared to dismiss the lawsuit and will sign an agreement never to make any future claims against Sophia Adams or Ascend Financial. My victory, though undeniable, felt hollow, tainted by the raw, pathetic desperation emanating from across the table. I looked at my father, my voice barely a whisper, thick with a mix of grief and accusation. Why, Dad, why would you do this? He couldn't meet my gaze, his eyes fixed on some distant point. We needed the money, Sophia, he mumbled, his shoulders slumping further. Ethan, he lost everything. He kept saying it was our only option. I replied, my voice tinged with a deep sadness. You could have asked for help, Dad. Not demanded it, not sued for it, just asked. Perhaps I would have considered it, offered some genuine help, had you just been honest and humble. Ethan, surprisingly, broke his silence, his voice thin and resentful. Would you have given it? He challenged, still unable to grasp the depths of his own entitlement. I answered honestly, quietly, I don't know, but this guaranteed I never will. You burned the last bridge. The paperwork was signed, witnessed, and filed. I walked out of that room feeling both utterly victorious and profoundly empty. The lawsuit had not created the rift. It had merely exposed the one that had always been there, festering beneath layers of pretense, favoritism, and unspoken resentment, finally bringing everything to a definitive, undeniable end. The legal victory against my father and Ethan, while undeniable and professionally validating, left a profound emotional scar. The public exposure of their scheme, the meticulous unraveling of their deceit in court, had been brutal, draining me of energy, but also, paradoxically, strangely liberating. The decades of quiet resentment, the unacknowledged efforts, the persistent, nagging feeling of being second best, of perpetually striving for an approval that would never come, it all culminated in that courtroom, a painful but ultimately necessary cleansing. The verdict, the public dismissal of their frivolous claims, felt like a resounding affirmation of my worth, a declaration that my achievements were undeniably my own. David, my steadfast partner, whose unwavering love and belief in me never faltered throughout the grueling process, gently suggested therapy. He understood that professional triumph didn't erase emotional wounds. I found Dr. Evelyn Reed, a kind and insightful psychologist who specialized in complex family dynamics and the healing of emotional trauma. She helped me unpack decades of emotional neglect, patiently explaining that my perceived strength and capability, while undeniably enabling my self made success, had also served as a convenient, even unconscious, excuse for my parents to withhold the emotional and financial support they so readily, and without question, showered on Ethan. Your worth in your family was always tied to your utility, Sophia, Dr. Reed explained during one particularly illuminating session, her voice soft but firm. What you could provide, or how little you demanded. But everyone needs support, Madison, even the strong ones, especially the strong ones who have learned to always stand on their own. Healing was a gradual, layered process, not a sudden revelation. It came through my chosen family, the incredible individuals who had truly seen me, supported me, and celebrated me unconditionally. There was David, whose unwavering love and quiet strength were my anchor. There was Cassie Vance, my brilliant attorney, who transformed from formidable legal counsel into a trusted mentor and fiercely loyal friend, her sharp mind a constant source of inspiration. There was my incredible team at Ascend Financial, who rallied around me, their unwavering loyalty a powerful testament to the culture of integrity, transparency, and mutual respect we had painstakingly built together. And there was a small, intimate circle of fiercely loyal friends, old and new, who celebrated my triumphs with genuine enthusiasm and listened patiently, without judgment, to my pain and my journey. It was in these genuine connections, built on mutual respect and unconditional support, that I finally found my true sense of belonging, a profound feeling of being truly seen and valued for who I was, not for what I could achieve or what I could provide. I also channeled my pain and newfound clarity into purpose, transforming a deep seated wound into a powerful wellspring of positive change. Ascend Financial, now more robust and reputable than ever, launched a new philanthropic initiative, the Beacon Project. This program provides pro bono financial literacy workshops, business mentorship, and seed funding to young, aspiring entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, particularly those navigating complex or challenging family dynamics, offering them the resources and guidance I had so desperately longed for. It was my way of ensuring that others, like my younger self, found the unconditional support and unwavering belief that had been denied to me. It was a tangible manifestation of turning hardship into a powerful force for good. The karmic consequence for Ethan and my father, though not directly orchestrated by me, was swift, comprehensive, and ultimately self inflicted. Mr. Wallace, a prominent, highly ethical investor who had been seriously considering a major investment in Ethan's luxury wellness retreat project, initiated his own independent due diligence after the lawsuit garnered unexpected media attention. Unbeknownst to me, Mr. Wallace had a strong personal belief in ethical investing and corporate transparency, principles he had often heard me speak about at various industry conferences. His meticulous investigation, prompted by the public reports about the family lawsuit and the questions it raised, unearthed a devastating trail of Ethan's prior financial misdeeds. Not just the squandered inheritance and the secret second mortgage he'd taken out on the family home, but also several smaller, ethically dubious investment schemes that had defrauded minor investors in other, unrelated ventures. This was all completely separate from my lawsuit, but the public scrutiny brought it all to light. Mr. Wallace, appalled by what he discovered, not only immediately pulled out of Ethan's retreat project, but also quietly, but firmly, alerted financial regulators to Ethan's long-standing pattern of fraudulent activities and gross financial mismanagement. Ethan's much-hyped luxury wellness retreat collapsed spectacularly before it ever truly launched, leaving him not just broke but facing multiple, severe legal investigations, criminal charges, and widespread condemnation within the investment and artistic communities. His once charming facade crumbled under the undeniable weight of his own exposed dishonesty, a stark and undeniable testament to the bitter consequences of chronic irresponsibility and calculated deception. My father, Richard, stripped of his ability to enable Ethan and facing the grim, unvarnished reality of their dire financial situation, eventually contacted me. It was a humble, tentative letter, written in a shaky hand, expressing genuine remorse and acknowledging, for the very first time, their long-standing pattern of taking from me and giving to Ethan. He wrote about selling the family home, its value significantly diminished by Ethan's undisclosed second mortgage, and how he was now living much more modestly in a small apartment, volunteering at a local community center. I didn't respond immediately. I held the letter for weeks, rereading it, discussing its implications with Dr. Reed, who advised that a cautious, boundary-laden reconciliation could be possible, but only on my terms. A month later, I sent a brief, carefully worded reply, acknowledging his letter and sharing an update about the Beacon project. 2 months after that, I agreed to meet him for coffee at a neutral spot. He looked older, his shoulders stooped, his face etched with weariness, but there was a new humility in his eyes, a flicker of genuine introspection. He spoke haltingly of his regret of finally seeing Ethan's true nature and of his decision to no longer enable him financially. He needs to find his own way now, Sophia, he stated, a phrase I had longed to hear for decades. Our relationship remains cautious and limited, built on carefully defined boundaries, but he sometimes attends Beacon Project events, watching me speak with what appears to be genuine, if belated, pride. Ethan has tried to connect through various social media channels, sending friend requests and vague messages, but I have not accepted his requests, maintaining the necessary distance for my own peace. My focus remains on my true purpose, my thriving career, my loving chosen family, and the profound realization that while I lost the family I was born into, I've built something infinitely stronger and more authentic in its place. My life is now rooted in relationships based on mutual respect, forged through conscious choice rather than mere chance, a powerful testament to finding peace, strength, and true belonging after profound family betrayal. Has someone in your own family ever made you feel invisible, or chosen someone else over you in a way that left a lasting wound? How did you navigate that difficult terrain of misplaced loyalty and shattered trust? I'd truly love to hear your own stories and experiences in the comments below. Your journey might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. If Sophia's story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And consider sharing this story with someone who needs to hear its morale. That building your own foundation, establishing clear boundaries, and choosing your own family of support are not only vital for your own healing, but for your eventual growth and peace. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that even from the deepest valleys of betrayal, you can ascend to build a life of profound purpose and strength.